Welcome back to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Karnes. This week on the podcast, I interview a first for this podcast and a first for me, an Olympic gold medalist. I've got Joe Jacobi. He won the 1992 Olympic gold medal in doubles canoeing and slalom canoeing. There you go. New term I learned. Slalom is also the title of his book, which I'll have linked below on Amazon. Joe is obviously an Olympic gold medalist, a performance coach, and an author. He collaborates with high achieving, high performance leaders who want to unlock their why, impactful wins, and ride spectacular life waves. Waves, something him and I both enjoy. He has a newsletter called Thinking in Waves as well. Joe's awesome, amazing conversation walking through how he won an Olympic gold medal and what you can do in your business and in your life to maybe have some of the same processes that he used to accomplish the amazing task of becoming an Olympic gold medalist, and what you can do in the same areas in order to achieve your biggest goals in your life and in your business. I wrote a book called Master Your First Job. It is the remarkable path from first day to first promotion. This is the book that every young employee needs and every employer wishes they had. I'd love to give you this book for free. If you go to masteryourfirstjob.com, that's masteryourfirstjob.com, I'll give you a free e-copy of the book. And if you're like me, you want to open it up, fold some pages, highlight some pages, you want a paper copy, there's a link to buy one on that link as well. But if you want the one for free, masteryourfirstjob.com/free to get a free copy of the book. Let's dive into my interview with Olympic gold medalist and high performance coach, Joe Jacobi. Joe, thank you so much for being on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast, our first gold medal winning, Olympic gold medal winning podcast guest. So first time for everything. Probably the last time I'll have. Maybe not. We'll see. But
No.
thanks
It's
so
not
much
going
for
to be
doing.
the last.
I'd love for you to. I won't spoil anything else. I'd love for you to share a little bit about you and your story.
Well, thank you, Jacob. I'm excited to be here. When I talk about my story, at first I like to sort of jump to where I am today, where I'm talking to you today. So I am in at my home in the Spanish state of Catalonia. I live in La Seu d'Urgell, which is a small mountain city of about 13,000 people, about 2.5 hours north of Barcelona, very close to the French border. And La Seu d'Urgell is the town that hosted the 1992 Olympic whitewater canoe slalom competition, which is where I won a gold medal at the Olympic Games at a much earlier chapter in my life. I was much younger then than I am today. But I did have an amazing experience here, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about in our conversation. And I've been living here for almost 8 years now. And I came here it was a quality of life adventure, a way of just sort of changing the surroundings. And I think when I talk about my story, I think the Catalan culture, the Catalan spirit of the people, the connection to nature, these are all like really big parts of my life. And I think more than anything, I think, making a move outside of the country where you're from, the place where you're comfortable, the place where you know the language, that's the thing. Like, you move to a different country and you are forced to learn every day. Like, you're forced to grow every day. I live in a place where I don't make appointments for haircuts or the dentist or an oil change in my car in English. I do all that in Catalan. And so thinking like that, and just doing the basics, it just kind of awakens my mind, my brain, my heart and spirit in a very different way every day. And that is really helpful to me. And then now that I've been living here for eight years now and adapting to the culture and the spirit and the way of life here, I think that also has a profound influence, not only in the way that I live my life, but on the way that I connect with people and form relationships with people, the way that I do my creative work, my writing, and the way that I do my professional work, my performance coaching that I do with executives and leaders.
I love it. In performance coaching, you've done performance coaching with executive leaders, and you've also done like real life coaching. Well, I say real life
Yeah.
coaching, sports coaching with the sport you did, which is kayaking, and it was, correct me if I'm wrong, 1992 Olympics that were in
In
Catalonia, right?
Barcelona.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, that's right. The 1992 Olympics were here in Catalonia. Most of the events were in Barcelona.
right.
And then the whitewater canoeing events were like a satellite village, like a satellite town. And so we had our own Olympic village here in Laseo, but it was a really special experience. I think one of the things that I felt with the 1992 Olympic experience was, yes, it was nice to be a part of Team USA, but I think when you're away from the main village in Barcelona, what you really feel is a connection with the other whitewater athletes from all the other teams.
Yeah,
And the sport that I do, by its very nature, it's an individual sport. So we're not crashing down the course together, bumping heads and knocking each other out as we go down the course. It's just one paddler on the course at a time, a lot like a slalom ski race in skiing.
yeah,
So you are navigating a course on the river for speed, precision, and agility. But when you're out on the river, you're really competing against yourself and you're competing against nature. The only real head-to-head competition takes place when you're looking at the scoreboard after the race is over. So in that way, the athletes are really close with each other. We get along very well. We support each other. And I think I can't tell you, I'm 55 years old. Now I am more than 20 years, just a little over 20 years retired from Olympic canoeing. I did my last Olympics in 2004 in Athens when I was 34 years old. But I never imagined how cool the relationships with the other people I competed with, how cool those relationships would get over time and the way we would connect with each other and the kind of conversations we would have with each other. And the more that we would learn about each other, about how we were then and how those experiences make a difference on our life today. And that's all really nice. And in the competitive side of canoeing, which is anchored here in Europe, that is one of the nice things about living here as well. I mean, I live right next to the 1992 Olympic whitewater course, which is the national training center for the Spanish national canoeing team. So by living here, I get a nice connection to those athletes, to their coaches, high performance directors, as well as when we have World Cup races here or the World Championships, then I get to visit with all the visiting teams and coaches and such as well.
that's awesome, and that experience is unique. I want to dive into it a little bit, just because, again, it's not everyone that gets to experience an Olympics from an athlete's perspective, and I think that that's a unique thing that everyone, not just in the U.S. but around the world, is we're all gathered around the TV to watch this event, or if you're lucky enough to get to see it in person. So, can you kind of walk me through like what it was like to go from I don't know what age you started canoeing,
Sure.
to go from there to, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this, to let me go compete at the highest level in the world, and then reach the mountaintop. You won a gold medal. I mean, you did the thing that everyone in every sport dreams to do, which is to be the best in at your sport in the world, which is pretty special. So, kind of walk me through that journey.
100%. I would love to. I think that first of all, I just want to say I feel so fortunate that my sport was whitewater canoeing because it's a sport that you really can enjoy doing for your entire life. Like you can
Yeah,
see these paddles. If you're watching on the video, you can see paddles behind me on the wall. These are paddles that Maria and I use to this day. Like we spent this past weekend paddling our racing canoe out on the river, and we're very active in that. We also paddle a surf ski kayak made for surfing offshore ocean waves out in the sea. So, like, here I am at this stage of life, and I'm still active in the sport, but it started in very much the same way. When I was 8 years old, I attended a summer camp in the Washington, D.C. area where I grew up, where kayaking was an activity. And in the late 1970s, a lot of summer camps had open canoes, like these big metal canoes, but almost no one had kayaks at that time. Today, a
yeah,
lot of camps do, but back then, almost no one had kayaks. But the camp that I went to was owned by a family who was friends with my parents. But that family, the son of the family, won a bronze medal at the 1972 Olympics when the Olympics were in Germany. And so
Okay.
he was kind of a legend that a lot of people held themselves up to. And, once people saw Jamie McEwen could win a bronze medal, there were a whole generation of people that said, hey, maybe I could win an Olympic medal.
Yeah.
But still, the drive was like we were in a sport that was a lot of fun to do. And so that was the first part of my upbringing. And secondly, as a kid, I was not in good shape. I was not very athletic. I was overweight. If you had asked me when I was 10 years old, if you had asked anyone what my career in sports was going to be, media, journalist, sportscaster, something
Yeah.
that was non athletic. And I was one of the first two people in my group at summer camp to learn the Eskimo roll. So when you turn upside down in a kayak, the Eskimo roll is what rights you back to the top, being upright again. And I had never been the first at anything, Jacob, nothing. And so at 10 years old, when you're the first at something or the best at something, there's this idea going through your 10-year-old mind thinking, I want to do more of this sport. And that's where I got my first fortuitous break, real fortuitous break. And that was having grown up in the Washington, D.C. area. I had no idea, but the very best canoe athletes, not in the United States, but in the entire world, were living and training on the Potomac River. The legendary coach, all these world champions, world medalists. So at 13 years old, when my best friend from summer camp and I were invited out to a U.S. team workout together, uh, we weren't just paddling with best athletes in the United States. We were with the best in the world. And that was at 13 years old. And I think to get that kind of opportunity and to say, oh my gosh, like this is what our world could look like. And I
Yeah.
think these are how dreams really start kind of coming into like a little bit more focused, step by step by step. And the funny thing was, the Olympics were never a part of all this because at the time, the U.S. was dominating the sport, especially with these athletes from the Washington, D.C. area training in the Potomac. There was no Olympic. After the 72 Olympic Games, the sport was taken off the Olympic program for 20 years. And world championships and world champion was the highest honors you could get in the sport. So again, it really came back to things like having fun on the river, having fun with the people that you're on the river with. And that just sort of um, facilitated a lot of curiosity about, oh, I wonder where this could go. I wonder how good I could get at this. Or I wonder if we designed a boat that did this, this, and this, what performance would look like. Or so there was a lot of competition with each other in those training sessions. And there was a big, big spirit of creativity. And those were really big influences on my sport that really led to ultimately qualifying for my first junior team when I was 16 years old and my first senior national team, my first senior world championships in my senior year of high school when I was 17 years old.
So from there, you're 17, and this is a national championship, you said.
This was world championships. So I
Okay.
finished graduation. Yeah, I finished graduation. And the next day I was on a plane headed to the French Alps in a little town called the Bourg Saint Maurice, where my canoe partner and we decided to live in this little village where the world championships were going to be. We were going to live there for 5 weeks. We did live there for 5 weeks, try
Fun.
to learn the river as best we could. But again, not only was the World Championships cool, but I can't say this enough. I just loved the people that I was paddling with from all the countries. Like I
Yeah.
remember at that World Championships when I was 17 years old, like I became friends with every athlete on the French canoeing team. And that was such an amazing experience. Like all the men, all the women, canoes, kayaks, the coaches, because we were like two Americans that were there with all the French athletes that were preparing for their home country world championships. So we became friends with them at a young age, and many of whom are still my friends today. And that was 1987. That was, I mean, I can't believe that we're just 2 years away from that being 40 years ago. And like, that's insanity to me. That's just
Yeah.
absolute insanity to me. Yeah.
So that's 1987. You're at this
Yeah.
point 5 years out from the Olympics. You've gone to a world championship. You're building all these relationships. At what point
Yes.
is it like, hey, Olympics are on the horizon? Obviously, like you're a year away from an Olympics at that point. Were you on that Olympic team in '88, or was it the
Well, what
first
was
time '92?
interesting, yeah, the first time was 1992. So
Okay,
we weren't even an Olympic sport in 1988.
that's what you were
But by
saying. Okay,
1988 and 1989, which was the year we got on the Olympic program, like in 1989, my canoe partner and I, we were already winning medals in World Cup races. We finished fifth in the World Championships, which were held in the United States
yeah,
in 1989. And a week later, we won our first ever World Cup race in Canada a week later. And, here we were thinking like, well, what do we want to do here for the next 3 years? But we're already like one of, in top five, top six doubles canoes in the world. And it's kind of apparent to us like we really should make this push. And we made some very innovative decisions over the next couple of years. The hardest one, but the most important one, was leaving the Washington, D.C. area, leaving the best training group in the world to go down to Western North Carolina into Appalachia, kind of the middle of nowhere, and really rebuild an old club out of nothing that wasn't operating, and rebuild that club from the ground up. And we just needed a change of scenery that was sort of suitable to our perspective on canoeing, our strengths and weaknesses as athletes, like,
yeah,
in not just athletically, but in life. And we found the right place for us. And I think on paper, it probably looked crazy. It would have been like leaving the Chicago Bulls when Michael Jordan was on the team
yeah,
and then just going to an expansion team and starting your own team up from scratch. But that was really important to what we did, and ultimately how we developed as athletes, through a really good period, but had a lot of challenges as well. And if you like, we can talk about some of those challenges.
yeah. What were some of the challenges?
So I'd say the biggest challenge in the 3 years leading up to the Olympics. So here we are, we're pretty good already. We know what it's like to get on the podium.
Yeah,
But I think all the listeners, viewers of this podcast can relate to the idea that as you start to hit your goals and then you start to set higher and higher goals, that's fun, but there's also working with the pressure and expectations with getting better is really hard to do. And if you don't have like the tools, and if you don't have like a real game plan for managing those expectations and those changes that come with going higher and higher and higher in the rankings, those can be very destructive times, even as results get better. And that's what happened with us. Like, our results were getting better, but my canoe partner and I, we were not treating each other very well. We were really different people, and we just lacked the capacity and the tools to really work with each other, to understand with each other. And the biggest thing that happened to work on that change, the United States Olympic Committee, United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee sent in their head of sports psychology, who was an Australian, named Shane Murphy, to work with us. And Shane never did one of these things like personality tests, like, oh, Joe, you're extroverted, and Scott,
yeah,
you're introverted, and you have to do this and this. It was nothing like that. All Shane taught us how to do was how to create a neutral space for having open and honest conversations. And this sounds like really easy to do, but it's really hard to do in practice. It's like soldiers learning how to leave all the artillery and all the weapons outside the room, and then to come into the room really as a stripped down version of yourself, like not just ready to just fire off criticism at the other person, but really ready to hear things about yourself that you might not find so flattering. And along those lines, I think what I learned is that not only is there better and smarter ways for people on teams to talk to each other, I think there's just a lot of conditions that teams can do to set better environments for having these kind of conversations. And that's what Shane did so well with us and for us. And he did it in a way where he knew at the Olympics he wasn't going to be there managing those conversations. So he was teaching us the tools how to have those conversations. And that was ultimately the breakthrough that I think was the difference between my doubles canoe team imploding and sticking together and having meaningful, trusting conversations in a way that would build upon something and set and reset a new way of paddling together, and not just sort of leaning in and anchoring to some expectation that things are always going to stay the same, and if we just count on that, the results will take care of themselves. No, you have to understand that we are creatures of change, and how we set ourselves up for that has everything to do with success or non-success.
So I have a question. Obviously, neither one of us have a crystal ball. Let's pretend we did. If that conversation didn't happen, the sports psychologist didn't come in, y'all didn't make the changes you need to make and create that space and a neutral space to be vulnerable and honest with one another, do you get the gold medal in 92?
I don't need a crystal ball. Not only do we not get the gold medal, I don't even think we make it to the Olympic trials. I think we were in a really hard space with each other. I think the team it was like, is this worth it? Like, does anyone really want to be a part of this? Like, have you ever been a part of a team like where you ask that question? Like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I here? Like, aren't there like a million better things I could be doing with my life than this? And when you lack the capabilities, when you don't even know what you don't know, I think that's where this was going. So yeah, I don't need a crystal ball for that one. Like, there's definitely not a gold medal, and I don't think there's an Olympic Games at all. Like, I don't think we get to the Olympic
Yeah.
trials. So that was about 15 months before the Olympics, and that was 1 year before the 92 Olympic trials that we really started to kind of work on this and improve upon this. And so there was a lot to do, but in the end, I mentioned, my canoe partner and I were really, really different people. The way I like to explain it, not 180 degrees different, but about 179.
Here you
And
go.
I really believe, had we been 175 degrees different, like, I don't think we would have won the Olympics. I think we still could have
Yeah.
gone to the Olympics, but I think it really required us learning to be good team members and good stewards of the team that we were building, being really
Yeah.
different from each other. That experience has had a profound impact on the life that I live today and how I approach relationships and how I look at teams. There's no problem to be on in a team situation with your best friend that sees, the world the same way
Yeah.
as you do. That my relationship with Scott has given me a lot of clues and information about those kind of relationships as well. And I've been in them, and I've haven't worked with I think a lot of things in those relationships sneak up on you. I think a lot of things don't get seen. I think the good thing about really diverse relationships, they always get seen. There's always a light being shined on something that makes you uncomfortable. Like, the resistance shows up very easily, but I think that tension that's built in ends up making you better as a teammate and ultimately making your team better overall.
I love that. You've had a lot of gold nuggets, and I want to come back to. Before we get there, I want to get to the gold medal. So, 15 months out, y'all make this big change. Like, you bring in a sports psychologist, y'all are working on your relationship off the river and out of the boat, so make you better in the boat, which I think is so important. You go to the trials, and how far out from the Olympics are the trials? Is it like 3 months before? Like,
Yeah, that's all right.
okay,
And back in 92, it's different now, but back then we did it in May of 1992, and the
okay.
Olympics were in early August. Yes.
So y'all win and how many from the U.S. go? Like, do y'all have multiple teams? I know some sports you have a few, but
It's very small today. So back
okay,
then, the competition was a little bit bigger. And by the way, my category, the doubles canoe, is not being contested today. There's other disciplines that
Yeah.
have replaced the doubles canoe. But back then, the U.S. had three boats in all of the four categories, which were
Okay.
men's single kayak, women's single kayak, men's single canoe, and men's double canoe. And
Okay.
so the U.S. had five really good boats that were going for three spots on the Olympic team.
And then how many boats in your category of doubles canoe made the Olympics? Like how many were you competing against?
Yeah, there were 17 boats at the Olympics, and that
Okay.
was pretty good story as well. So there was a very kind of clear favorite for gold and silver. And then the general feeling was there was about 12 boats that were kind of in it for the bronze. And we were kind of one of those 12 boats that were in it for the bronze.
Who are the
So
favorites?
the two favorites was a team from Czechoslovakia. The country was together back then.
Yeah.
There was a Czechoslovakian team and a French team. And so what happened, the rules of the sport back then is you got two runs down the course during the
Okay.
Olympics, and they take
Only
the
two.
better of, yeah, two runs down the race course, which is about a 2 minute run back then, 2 minute run down the course. And they take the better of your two runs. So the first run down the course, we have an amazing run down the course and we have a huge lead over the competition. And that can all be undone on the next run. All someone has to do is have a better run than our first
Yep.
run. And if we don't improve, we won't win or we won't be on the podium. But we were up by 6 seconds on our nearest competitor. And then 2 minute race, that's like having a 50-point lead at halftime in a basketball
Yeah,
game.
that's huge.
And
Yeah.
yeah, what that did, I think that sort of put our top competitors a little bit on defense. And it was a little bit harder for them to attack from that position because they didn't want to take such big risks that they missed the podium altogether. But yeah, and for us, I write about this in my book, Slalom. There's a chapter called The Anatomy of Bold Coaching. And we had a very young coach, a doubles canoe paddler from the US who had been a world champion in the doubles canoe 9 years earlier. And through the day before at the Olympics, he was watching like everyone who was in first place after the first run fail to improve their second run and subsequently dropping 2 places to the third place position in the overall. So he had a strategy where he asked everyone in the US, coaches, athletes, when my canoe partner and I got to the tent, he didn't want anyone there. I remember there was a table and two chairs in the middle of this big tent. And
Yeah.
we just sat down in the chair and waited for him. And Fritz was our coach's name. And Fritz comes in and he slams this clipboard on the table. Like he's upset. Like he's like, at least he's pretending to be upset. And he just said, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but if you think that run is going to hold for a medal, you're crazy. He goes, I counted 5 mistakes that I saw out there. And if you guys are ready to roll up your sleeves and do the work and have a better second run, let's do it because what we have right now is not going to be good enough to win a medal in the Olympic Games. So in that moment, Jacob, we go from being like happy fat cats, being like, hey, we did really well to like, oh my gosh, like this is serious. Like we need to do better. And so we start that planning process. We started to watch video. We started to talk about the 5 mistakes that he saw. And it was great. Like we got excited about learning and getting curious and like what else we could do. And so we go out, we do the second run, and we do better than we did on the first run. And of all four categories at the 1992 Olympics, we were the only boat to win both runs of the Olympic Games.
Wow.
And, I think our coach was really amazing. I think what he had seen the day before, the U.S. had a boat that was winning after the first run. And he saw all the people being festive and happy and celebrating and like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And he just said, I can't do that again. I can't be a part of that again. And he asked the whole support team, which was a big support team, just clear out, let me have my time with Joe and Scott, and let's fix this. And that's how he did it. He just really brought us back down to a level where we could start the process of learning and getting curious again. And that was the difference. We went out, we had a really great run. It felt good. And even when we crossed the finish line, because there's only one boat down the course at a time, anyone that has ever watched the video, you can see we're really happy. We knew we had paddled well, but there were still 8 or 9 more boats to come down the
Yeah, you just
course,
don't know.
any of which could have knocked us off. We were not even guaranteed of a medal, let alone the gold medal. But we knew we had done well for ourselves and done the very best we could. And then the game of waiting for each boat to come down and pass, and
Yep.
everyone's kind of falling below our time. And ultimately, those 2 boats that were the favorite to win the gold and silver, they got silver and bronze. And my
Okay.
canoe partner and I won the gold medal at the Olympic Games.
Amazing. I wrote down so many golden. I just want gold nuggets. I just want to go through a few. Um, One, you talk about curiosity, and I love curiosity. I wrote about it in my book. My favorite quote on this comes from Walt Disney. He said, "Around here, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." And I think like thinking differently is such an important skill to get right. And it's simply being curious enough to ask the question, like, what if? What you guys, and I think about you at a young age is asking, like, oh, like what if I did this? And, what would it look like
Yes.
to do this professionally or, at the highest level? And, not being afraid to ask that question. Cause I think sometimes, especially for young people, you could be looked at as silly or that's ridiculous to ask that question of what if this? But I think the most successful people in the world started with that question of what if we did blank, or what if I tried blank, and that led to sometimes life changing stuff either for the individual or for the world with some inventions. And I think curiosity is so big that you talked about. Something else that stuck out, and you've said continuously, is this connection with people. In that, I think about Tom Brady. He had a quote from, I forget which Super Bowl it was. He won a ton. So when he won one of his Super Bowls, he'd been asked like an interview question. He basically responded with like, "This is it." Like he's gotten to the top of what you can do as a quarterback professionally, and he's like, "Is this really it?" And I think you talking about like, yes, I won a gold medal, but the most valuable thing I've gotten is this experience and these relationships with the other competitors, with people you've gotten to meet around the world, being the thing that's been the most valuable all these years later. Because now you've gotten on the other side of it, and you can say that the gold medal was awesome, but man, these people I got to meet and these relationships I've built. Something I've talked about often on this podcast is I think the thing that's going to be the most valuable, not just for people personally, but in business as well, over the next decade is going to be genuine human connection. Because in this age of this new tech wave of AI revolution, that genuine human connection is going to be very, very valuable and worthwhile to people. And hearing you talk
Well,
about that, even from your perspective, is just really cool to hear. And I think it's really special.
let's double click on that.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm with you. So, but I want to play a little bit with the connection
yeah,
part. Um, I when I'm coaching leaders, I think ultimately what I'm thinking about is their disposition to generate good ideas. Like what is their creative state? What does their creative self look like? And where is their sense of creativity coming from? Is it coming from a sense of fear? Is it coming from a sense of stress, tension, resentment, like some negative emotions? Or is it coming from like a place of love, peace, freedom? I think some of the more positive places. All we can do with creativity and the quality of ideas, all we can do is set a better environment for doing that. And so for me, creative is like the outcome. So let's back up like what makes for good creativity. And very quickly, I've got capacity, which is like not time, it's energy. It's managing your
yep,
energy, your
yep.
capacity to do something. But
You're right.
then now the second word I always talk about is connection. And in this way, even in when I think of Tom Brady, when I think of like great teammates, yes, connection to others. Yes, connection to nature. But the connection to self, that's ultimately where that ability to turn inward, that ability to sort of work with difficult parts of yourself, difficult experiences that you've had in the past. I think when you can combine like a good, manageable energy level, capacity level with like improving connections to yourself, improving connectiveness, that connection with yourself, those two things together are going to radically improve your ability to generate your ideas. So I would put creativity and ideas right alongside that connectiveness in an AI world, in a technology world. Um, and I think being good in that technology side, I don't want to fight it.
Oh, me either.
I want the people here to be good at working with technology. But part of being good at working with technology, I did make a reference to connection with nature. I think movement in nature I think nature's greatest days are ahead of itself.
Yeah.
And the people that I work with, we are going to talk about what movement in nature looks like as a tool for developing stronger connection with yourself so that you can connect with others better and ultimately generate better ideas, innovative ideas, and make choices about ideas, even if technology is helping you to make those ideas.
That's killer. I love the all three: the connection, the creativity, and the nature portion
Capacity.
of it.
Yeah.
Capacity. There you go.
Yeah.
Something else you talked about I thought was so good is I wrote it down before you finished, but you were talking about your run at the Olympics and no one was improving, and I just wrote down like don't waste your first run before you're like oh, and then you improved on your second one. But I'm like, but both are important. Of like, hey, you're not guaranteed. It's like you know you have two runs, but that does not mean your second one's going to be your best. So don't waste your
Right.
first. Of like, hey, if you have two shots at something, don't throw one of those away. Like, give it your best shot. And y'all did. You had a 6 second lead, and your coach is like, that's not going to be good enough. And then it's, hey, don't waste your first round, which you did. But then also, even if the first one's good, improve on it. Find out, you can be proud of it and also say, okay, we did make 5 mistakes. Let's go correct those and see how much better we can do. And that be an okay thing to enjoy and improve on, which again, for you and your story, that led to an Olympic gold medal, something that only one boat was going to do for your sport, which is special. Jay, you've talked about, again. I keep saying gold nuggets, which I think this fits for our first gold medal winning guest. You've given us a lot, and I think your story is really powerful. And I know you do this with your business, and that I think sports are one of life's greatest teachers, and I'm so glad that I played sports, especially team sports, growing up, and individual sport. I mean, I played golf, and I feel like golf is similar in that you're like, I'm not, going head to head with someone. It's kind of you against the river, and golf's very similar. And then I'm like, it's me against the course, and whoever plays the course the best is going to win. And I feel like sports are some of life's greatest teachers, and the connections you can make between sport and life, and what translates between how to win and be successful in sport and in life as well. So I think it's really special that you get to do that now with your performance coaching as well. If there's one takeaway from our conversation today, from your story, that either a business owner, a leader, or even a young person listening could take away from today, what would you want that to be?
That's a great question. I think what comes to mind for me is to be fascinated with the process. I
That's
think
so good.
you find me at a time where I've been interacting with, I mentioned when I was really young, the legendary coach of our sport was leading all the training sessions on the Potomac River. And I've recently exchanged several emails with him. He's turning 80 years old this
Wow.
year. And Bill Endicott is his name. He worked in the West Wing of the White House. He was in the U.S. Marine Corps, and he was Olympic coach to Olympic medalists, Olympic champions, world medalists, world champions. And he said the greatest commonality that he ever noticed with military, politics, and sport at the highest level was the people that were fascinated with the process and just the fundamentals and the basics, and really finding ways to make that fun and enjoyable. And I look back in my life when I was younger and I sort of look at what I'm doing today in my life, not just in work, but in my relationship with Maria, in my creative writing, in my health and wellness pursuits, which involves paddling. It's just to try to be fascinated with the process. And that allows me, by the way, to lean into that muscle of curiosity. And I'm one of these people. I'll just share with you one of the biggest things I'm working on in my life is, and I wrote about this in my Thinking in Waves essays today, is this idea of how to hold multiple truths in our life, even when they can be almost appear to be in opposition of each other. And for me, that is, how do we go about being really content with what we have today? That not be in this place like, oh, if I only had this, if I only had it better, that like life would be so much better, because then I'm living in lack. Then I believe that I don't have enough right now. And I don't believe that. And I want to be one of these people, Jacob, I want to do better. I want to be curious.
Yeah,
I want to improve.
Too.
And so these are two truths, opposing truths, that I want to hold simultaneously. And that is just always, that's my work in progress. And I think being fascinated with the process is such a great way to go about that. And that would be my takeaway from this conversation.
I love that. It's something I've been fascinated by for a long time. My favorite sport is college football.
Yes.
And Nick Saban is famous for this and the process he does. And Kirby Smart, my favorite team is the Georgia Bulldogs, and Kirby Smart coached for Nick Saban for a long time, and he brought that to Georgia. And that, what we do, Kirby has famous practices that are Bloody Tuesday, is what they call them, and they hit at full speed during, which a lot of college teams don't do anymore during practice, and that's why they call it Bloody Tuesday. But he had a famous and colorful speech before the national championship against TCU that kind of went viral. But as a part of it, he's like, you've paid the price for this for 12 months. Let's go take it out on them. Like, because you fell in love with the process for the last 12 months of caring about how you go through a drill on a Monday practice in March, now you get to go take this out on a championship, at a championship level, and take it out on somebody else. And like, you can't, I don't think you can get the high result you want without falling in love with the process. And I love what you said too, though. And it's something I struggle with is I am someone who's a high achiever, and I love thinking about what's next and doing the next thing. And I wrote one book and I'm like, okay, I already know what I want to improve on this on the second book, but how do I also, like you said, like be content with today? And I think you can do both of those well. And I know they seem like opposing truths, but to your point, I think if you can connect those well, you're going to live a really fulfilling life, and you'll also get the results you want, as well as being just happy with where you are. I think that's really good. I forgot to ask you a question at the beginning, which is, speaking of my book, I did write a book called Master Your First Job. What was your first job?
Well, my first job was I had a paper route. I delivered when I was growing up in Bethesda, Maryland. I carried the Washington Star newspaper for a couple of years until it printed its final edition when I was in 5th or 6th grade. But paper route was my first job. And then after that, I got to cut lawns a little bit. Eventually, at summer camp, I got to be like a counselor in training at that summer camp where I learned to paddle.
Yeah.
So that idea that you could actually not be paid a lot, but be paid anything to teach canoeing to kids. Oh my gosh, Jacob, that was just like mind blowing. I mean, that was just amazing. So yeah, I got to do a lot of neat things to earn money before I was even 18 years old. And but yeah, newspaper carrier was my first job.
Do you get to the second thing you said, like getting to teach kids and young people like how to canoe and kayak? Do you get to do that now?
It's funny. I talk to a lot of people that are interested in doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I promise, like, I've got nothing to sell right now. But the next thing that I am going to be doing is I'm going to do adventure coaching retreats here in Catalunya for people like yourself, for adults. We will spend time on either the river and or the sea in boats. But the idea is, you mentioned earlier today the world of technology that we're living in, and I want people to really, in a developing as a human kind of way.
Right.
I'm really committed to getting people out of their comfort zone, out of their normal environments. I know it's a big ask to get people on a plane to Barcelona, but once they are here, we will get out of Barcelona and we will get into some of the most beautiful nature you can imagine. And in just a matter of days, we will make just incredible life impacting changes that will have you seen your relationship with technology, your relationship with work in the United States a lot differently than you see that today. And my belief is the amount of work that we can do in 4 or 5 days working together here in a group environment will transcend what I can do in a series of one-to-one coaching calls in the course of a year. And I'm really looking forward to positioning whitewater canoeing and sea kayaking to really allow people to do that in this midlife transition chapter of their existence and their experience here in this form and in this planet.
Sounds awesome. You'll have to send me the info on that whenever you do it.
Can't
Oh,
wait.
it sounds amazing. I got told as a teenager that you'll be the same person 5 years from now. I think it was except for the books you read, the people you meet, the places you go, and the things you experience, or something like that. And to your point, it's like you're getting to do several of those things, and that you're getting to go to a new place, experience a new thing, meet new people, and those are the kind of things that I think can be really life changing. Joe, this has been a real pleasure. Your book Slalom is available on Slalom is available on Amazon. I'm going to link that in the episode description for people who want to grab that. Where else can people connect with you, learn more about you, or even if they want to work with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, joejacobi.com is the best place to do that. And also, we talked about curiosity in this conversation as well. My website, joejacobi.com, has a lot of great resources there. Not only can you sign up for my weekly essay, Thinking in Waves, but I actually have my journaling framework on there, the journaling framework that was based off my Olympic experience as an athlete, really from the journaling framework I used since age 12. And I share that for free on my website. And the reason I mentioned that to you, Jacob, is that I have some word maps that I write in my journaling process every day. And curious is one of the words that I write in my journal every single day.
I love it. Joe, this has been a real pleasure. A pleasure to interview you and a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for doing it.
Thank you so much for having me. And if I have anything to do with it, I am not going to be your last Olympic gold medalist.
There you go.
As a guest on this podcast.
I love it. Well, thank you to everyone so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.